Thursday, May 13th, 2021, 11 a.m. I'm calling to order the Riverboat Committee meeting. And I will ask for roll call, but we don't have a staff person.
Yes, Chris Dahl will conduct a roll call for you.
Chris. Okay, Chris, would you call roll, please? Thanks.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Caius.
Caius present.
Berman. Ford.
Present.
Leonard.
Leonard present.
Strathman.
Strathman present.
Could we just confirm whether or not Mr. Berman is joining the meeting? I just heard some bells ring. Mr. Berman, do we have you? Okay, Chairman Caius, you have a quorum of the Riverboat Committee present.
Okay. Then I will ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the Riverboat Committee, July 29, 2020. If you look them over,
Leonard moves.
Leonard,
Yeah.
second, if you just glanced at them or looked them over a little bit. I'm sure that you did that in your homework. Ford, second. Any comments other than some of us weren't there? No comments? It looked okay to you, Bill? All right. I was listening in, so I think we're okay.
There you go.
Yes, so
Mr.
we have a
Chairman,
motion and a second. Would you call roll, please? Chris?
Yeah. Caius.
Caius, yes.
Berman. Ford.
Yes.
Leonard.
Leonard, yes.
Strathman.
Strathman, yes.
Mr. Chairman, this is Deborah Allen.
Yes, Miss Allen, I'm sorry.
I'm butting in only to say that I was there and I read the minutes and they were accurate. So you're
Okay,
all in
well.
good shape.
Well,
Thank you.
now it is official. Thank you, Miss Allen. Excellent.
Don't be smart. Thank you.
It's okay. No comment. Okay, well, on to item 3, consideration of the fiscal year 2021 external grant requests. And I'm going to ask first that maybe in explanation, if everyone understood the instructions to do the calculations.
Chairman Caius, I'd be happy to give you and the committee a brief overview of how we got to today.
Could you do that then?
I'd be happy to do that.
Excellent.
So just a reminder to the group that the main purpose of today's meeting is to review applications from external entities, those including nonprofit organizations as well as units of local government that annually seek support from the county board in the form of riverboat grants. The amount that was included in your current year's budget for external projects was $560,958. Chris Dahl did distribute application materials to the general public earlier this year, and we did receive a total of 49 applications, totaling a request of $2,057,779. Those applications were distributed to the Riverboat Committee along with a worksheet wherein committee members were asked to make recommendations regarding how they felt the funding should be distributed. That went through a couple steps with the committee members, and that resulted in the identification of projects in Tier 1 and Tier 2. I'll just explain that Tier 1 projects are projects that received an endorsement or a recommendation from at least 4 of the committee members, 4 of the 5 committee members. And Tier 2 projects are those that received a recommendation by 3 of the committee members. So the results of the process resulted in 9 projects being identified in Tier 1 and a total of 18 projects in Tier 2. So Mr. Peters, if you could please move us to page 4 of the packet. Actually, Blair, do you have the email that I sent you yesterday afternoon? I also want to note that Mr. Berman has joined the meeting. Chris, could you please note that for the record?
Yes. Oh, other Chris.
Yeah, sorry.
I got it. I got it.
Thank you very much. Okay, so Mr. Peters is sharing with you a screenshot that represents the results of your work as members of the Riverboat Committee. Chris Dahl did distribute this information to you yesterday morning. And again, this reflects that 9 projects were identified by you collectively in Tier 1 with a total recommended amount of $299,737 in funding. 4 projects in total were recommended at the full amount they requested, and there are others that are in that tier as well. And then the Tier 2 project recommendations that you collectively have communicated to us represent another allocation of $255,716. The grand total of this is $555,453 in requests. This falls just short, or I should say within the amount that the county board approved for our current fiscal year. And so at this point, I would like to simply state that this set of recommendations is reflective of what you as a committee feel is worthy of funding, and gives you a jumping off spot for your deliberations today. You may simply approve and recommend to the full county board these amounts, or you may adjust them during this meeting. But we are looking for you to make a recommendation today that we can take to the full county board next month. And I would just like to ask Chris Dahl to maybe comment a little bit about the interest in the program and kind of how this application cycle stacks up against previous cycles. Chris?
Sure. As Scott made you aware, we had about $2.06 million in requests, and we only have $561,000 in available funds. So a lot of interest. Of the 49 total applicants this year, 22 were new. So almost half of them are still new applicants. So you are getting new applicants every year. The total amount of applicants is consistent with what we've seen over the last few years, ever since we've done the online application process through Zoom grants. We're roughly around upper 40s, mid 50s in total applicants. So we've dropped from a high in the last, I don't know, probably going back 6 years or so, of $1 million available to 561,000 this year. That is a drop from last year, obviously, because of the Riverboat proceeds and a limited amount of money that we're receiving from them. I will say that of the 22 new applicants, the majority of them, as we hope for, are capital projects. There are a handful of new operating expenses. And you have looked at those applicants and you have made your initial recommendations. And I would say that the interest has still been great, that there are a lot of worthy applicants out there and worthy projects. And hopefully you can work through this and come to a great conclusion.
Thank you, Chris. Chairman Caius, that concludes our kind of summary of how we got to today. We would ask you and the committee to deliberate at this point and give us a recommendation to act on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Berger, and thank you, Mr. Dahl. I'll open it up for comments right now. Bill?
Yes,
Mr. Leonard, excuse me.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. With respect to this first and second recommendation for the external grants, I was under the misconception that our second round recommendation for both Tier 1 and Tier 2 were our final recommendation. Unfortunately, I found out after the fact that in Tier 1, the second recommendation is any addition to the first round recommendations, which I was not aware of. So in essence, I really need to redo my 9 Tier 1 allocations because I just put down what my final recommendation was under the second recommendation under Tier 1. And therefore, those 9 Tier 1 recommendations are higher than they should be. There was some confusion on my part because under the Tier 2 recommendations, you only asked for a second recommendation. There was no first recommendation average. So you use that in the way I thought Tier 1 was going to be used. So the Tier 2 recommendations, which are on the bottom of the page, the 18, those were recommendations that I put down my final recommendation on, and that moved over, I guess, to the total recommendation. I mistakenly thought that the second round recommendation for Tier 1 was to be our final one, not in addition to the Tier 1. So my numbers are elevated, and I'm not comfortable agreeing to those numbers at this point. I would ask that we possibly, at least with the Tier 1, the Tier 2 I have no problem with, but with the Tier 1, I think reevaluate and maybe submit our final recommendation, whether it be the total amount or the addition to the first amount, to you, Scott and Chris, and then you can give us the final numbers on that. Unfortunately, it was done improperly on my part.
So Chairman Caius, I'd be happy to remark on that.
Yes, Mr. Berger.
So if I understand you correctly, you inadvertently recommended funding amounts higher than you would have done so had you followed the process precisely. So if I understand correctly, what that basically means is that Mr. Leonard is suggesting that these final recommendations that we've returned to you might be higher than he intends. So my recommendation to you today would be to make the adjustments that you think are appropriate to the numbers that you see in front of you in the yellow column, and to send those on to the county board once you've made those adjustments. Thank you.
So perform those calculations here in this meeting.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Because we're under a timeline to get this moving on.
No, you're welcome to table this issue and reconvene at a later time if you would like. But my suggestion to you is that everything that we've presented to you today is really just an academic exercise that you've performed. And the intention is to give you a jumping off spot for your deliberations in this meeting. So if you want to deliberate on funding amounts that you want to recommend to the full county board, you may do that today. And you may either entirely eliminate recommended amounts from the yellow column or elevate them to the extent that you see fit as a group.
Mr. Leonard?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Berger, I understand what you're saying, and I'm glad there is no timeline on this because I don't want to rush to judgment on this. Unfortunately, I think some of the other people on the committee were a little bit concerned too about not understanding the process. And all I'm asking is that we table our final decisions, have another meeting in a week, just so we have a few days to go over Tier 1. Tier 2, I'm fine with. But tier one, I really need to put down my final recommendation for all the 9 tier one projects that we approved. And I would really like to have some time to look over those 9 and give my final recommendation. That wouldn't be added to recommendation 1, but just a final recommendation like we did on tier 2.
Well, then is there any other comment from the other members of the committee?
You know,
Board?
this is
Oh, Mr.
Dale.
Berman? Go ahead.
You know, we could go through each one of these in tier one and discuss each one and modify it if we so see fit. So, you know, take into account what Mr. Leonard would like to see. You know, we could do that now. It's not going to take us that long to go through that number, but discussing each one.
Shall we try that? Any other Mr. Ford?
Just a question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Does this go straight to board meeting, not to exec?
Straight to the board.
Straight to the board, okay.
I'll leave that, Mr. Berger. This
Well,
goes.
actually, if you were to make a recommendation today, what we would do is create a resolution and submit that to the executive committee at their June meeting. Pending approval of the executive committee, that would go to the county board, the full county board at your June 8th meeting.
Answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Comments from anyone else on the board?
Yes,
On
Mr.
committee?
Chairman.
Yes.
I
Ms.
think
Strathman?
I agree with Mr. Leonard that now that I'm a little clearer on the process, I wouldn't mind having some time to look over what I've done and then we meet again in a week or so to do this process.
Mr. Berman, any other comments?
But, no, I guess I thought that we were to review that, what was presented to us, and then have some comments to change that or modify that today, or give our feelings towards each one of the decisions that have been collectively done, either in there or at least have been completed. But I don't, if we want to put it off, that's fine.
Okay, well, I want everybody to feel, personally, my opinion is I want everybody to feel comfortable with the process so that we're, in a lot of things can happen in an open committee that it gets just a little screwy. That's a technical term for meetings. So if it's I'll entertain a motion to table, I guess. I mean, is it
I'd like to move to table. This is Leonard.
I'll second.
second?
Strathman.
Move to table by Leonard, second by Strathman. And we'd like to table this until
1 week.
1 week. Shall we check our calendars here? Or I guess we could. Mr. Berger, of course, this is at your availability and Mr. Dahl's as well.
Yes, I'm checking our calendar right now. My understanding is that you're interested in convening on Thursday, the 20th. I'm checking Mr. Dahl's calendar as well. The two of us are available. Tracy Glassford will be out that day.
Could I jump in real quick too? Because you do have some county meetings. This is Blair and IT. You have public service at 9 a.m. You got agriculture at 10, and you have a reapportionment task force meeting at 3:30. And then that day also has the King County Drug Court graduation over at the Judicial Center that is at 5 p.m.
And I have a doctor's appointment at 11:40.
He's got a doctor's appointment at 11:40.
Could we do it at 8 o'clock or 8:30 in the morning before the public, before the
Public service?
public service? It should be a short meeting because once we get a chance to review just tier one, not tier two, we should be able to approve this in no time at all.
Are we
Okay,
asking? Is
and
this
may I
like,
just ask for a point of order? So are
Certainly.
you recommending, or are you asking for us to conduct basically a poll of the committee members regarding the final figures that you want to appear in the yellow column for tier one? Is that what you're asking us to do?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so what we would then do, pending your vote today, is we would issue you a new spreadsheet with just the tier one projects. We would indicate to you the amount that they requested, and we would ask each committee member to indicate the exact amount, the final amount that you would like to allocate for those 9 projects. And then we would average those figures and return them to you.
Mr. Chairman.
Is that desirable on the part of the committee?
Mr. Chairman,
Rathman?
I also have a question about an item on tier 2. So, you know, for me, it's not just tier 1 items.
Well, it's all, no, it's all tier, oh,
Yeah,
there's a question about tier 1
Tier 2.
and tier 2.
It gets confusing because we have round 1, round
Round
2.
one. Oh, round
tier
one's all
1
okay.
and tier 2.
Round 1's not a question.
Round 1 is done, is round 2. And what we could do
Tier
is if Mr. Berger could just send us a new sheet, we keep the sheet we have, and on the tier 2, if we have no problem with those figures, we just fill those in again. But on tier 1, then we could decide what amounts we want to give to those 9 applicants in tier 1. So it's a little bit more work for you, Mr. Dahl, Mr. Berger, but I think if there is a question or two on tier 2, if you can just send us a sheet, say, give us your final recommendation on these 27 applicants, and there's one or two of us may have a question on in tier 2, we can just give you that amount. You can tabulate the average and have it ready for us on Thursday morning at 8:30, if that'd be all right.
Is
We
that
can
out?
absolutely do that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Strathman?
at that time, will there be discussion about who has supported what and why?
Well, that's the idea, is to bring it for open discussion, so we may need more than a half an hour. It's supposed to take a half hour, but
Well, maybe we should do it at 8 then.
is that a problem with staff? To do it at
No,
8
that
o'clock?
should be fine. That should be fine. Let me just make it clear that we're not trying to confuse the matter. The intention here is to give you a basis on which you can deliberate. And so, you know, you have maximum flexibility either today or next week to adjust any and all figures that we've presented to you. They are not mandates. They are simply, this is an academic exercise that is intended for you to have a basis on which to deliberate.
Right, which we come up with the final figures that will then be forwarded to the board as final figures in a form of a resolution.
That's correct. There are no final figures until this votes to recommend specific dollar amounts
Okay.
for projects.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Strathman?
could we consider Wednesday, the 19th? Because it's not quite as busy on the calendar.
Wednesday, the 19th? In the afternoon,
Or following the,
following legislative?
Is that 11 o'clock then?
We
Blair?
are available at 11 and 3 that
so maybe
day.
11 o'clock on
Same thing.
Wednesday, the 19th?
Mr. Peters? On reference, oh, excuse me, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I would like to be, have whatever time we require.
Good point.
So
Right.
rather
I think
than
that-
trying
yeah,
to
I think
squeeze
that's
it
a good
in,
idea as well.
So Wednesday, the 19th at 11 a.m.
that would work for me.
Perfect. That'd work for me. Ron?
Legislative goes
long
as it starts at 10. It should hopefully be done by 11.
Yeah, if we have to wait 15 minutes to clear on that one. Yeah, these meetings are
So
like,
I understand this is a motion to table with instructions to our staff to give us the clean tables again to start with the
Of the 27.
27,
Yes.
and we will reconvene at 11 a.m. on Wednesday, the 19th, and for discussion to prepare the final figures.
And then, Mr. Chairman, also too, I think it's important that we get these numbers in to Mr. Berger and Mr. Dahl a day or two before the meeting.
Correct.
So if we could do that maybe by Tuesday at noon,
When do
would
you
that
need-
give you enough time?
When do you need the figures?
Tuesday at noon would work for us.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman Bates, please.
Ms. Bates?
So if a non-member would like to give some input, would we call you perhaps?
I'm always available, Ms. Bates.
Good. I would like to know what the city of Aurora is asking us for money for. So how do I find that out? For a budget of like,
Mr. Berger?
what,
Commissioner
500,000?
Bates,
Yes.
Commissioner Bates, we will be happy to share a web link to a SkyDrive account with you that contains all the applications.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr.
Including the City
Berger.
of Aurora's. Yes, they were too voluminous to distribute by email, so we did upload everything to a SkyDrive account.
Okay,
that
wonderful.
goes-
Thank you.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Ms. Bates. And that goes for any other board members that are interested in the process. Please feel free to access that. It's very informative, very interesting. very
I'm here to
interesting
watch how
process.
the sausage gets made.
So far, it's sausage. That's true.
So far,
So-
it's
So far, it's
sausage.
scrambled eggs.
So Wednesday, the 19th after legislative,
Yes.
submitting well, that has nothing to do with it. You'll submit the things. Okay, there's motion and a second. Does that work with you? Mr. Leonard moves to table.
Ms. Strathman
Strathman
seconds.
second, no discussion.
Chris,
Can I have roll call,
if you could do a roll call vote, please.
Roll,
Sure. Caius,
Caius, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Strathman.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
So it's moved and seconded and passed by unanimous that we will reconvene on the Wednesday, the 19th, just after legislative. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Berman.
Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Ford,
Timeline, do we need to discuss the timeline?
timeline for,
Our internal grants, but we could do that at the next meeting too.
oh, I think we discuss that afterwards. Let's make sure we deal with this. Or actually, good point, Mr. Ford. Mr. Berger?
Yes. So the last item on your agenda this morning is just simply informational. And we wanted to share with you our timeline for initiating the development of your 2022 budget. This is for the county fiscal year beginning December 1st, 2021. So many of you may be aware that the lion's share of your historical expenditures under the Riverboat Fund have been on county departmental projects. These are projects brought forth by different county departments that the Riverboat Committee and in fact the full county board have supported historically with transfers that occur at the beginning of each fiscal year. So right now we are basically at the midpoint of fiscal 2021. And Blair, if you could share with the group the final page in the packet. We'd like to just take a moment just to let you know that we are preparing to do a number of things. Number one, we're going to be asking each county department that you have funded historically to share with us their year-end report. That is, in fact, the accomplishments that they were able to achieve as of November 30th of last year, the end of fiscal 2020. At this time, we'll also ask those departments to share with us their mid-year status report because we are currently halfway through fiscal 2021. So this is intended, these reports will be shared with you with the intention that you're able to review what the departments have been able to accomplish with the financial contributions that you have made to them. At the same time, we're going to be asking them to bring forth their requests for fiscal 2022 funding. And so that information will all be shared with you so that you are able to begin to deliberate on how you'd like to support those projects going forward. We've laid out a calendar for you that basically covers June through mid-July, and that's simply informational for your review this morning. Thank you.
Can we get, are you sending a copy,
Yeah, like an email copy. of that
email
schedule
copy?
to
What's
the
in the
committee.
We'd be happy to email this to you.
agenda? Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Berger. Apologize for this.
Okay, we're getting quite a lot of feedback. I'm not sure from where it's coming.
I don't know, there's a party somewhere. I'm ready.
So,
Okay. I guess I cleared that up.
Okay,
Okay,
that concludes our
Berger?
report to you
Okay.
today.
Thank you. Thank you for your help, Mr. Berger and Mr. Dahl. Apologize for this slight delay. And now, anything else from the committee we should be handling today? Okay, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Strathman move. Ford second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
aye.